Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first ever bonus episode of Manchester to Madrid World Football Podcast. My name is Ryan Rogers, and I'll be joined today by my good friend and co-host of the show, Sam Johnson. Today we have a great episode planned for everyone. We're going to be covering all things world football, especially with the Bundesliga returning. Obviously, everyone knows the Bundesliga is right around the corner and will be starting back up Saturday and Sunday of this upcoming weekend. If you're checking us out for the first time and like what you hear, we would love if you subscribed anywhere you listen to your podcasts. Follow us on Podbean and share with 3 of your friends. We are on Apple, Google, and Spotify, and find us on Twitter at RRMTMFootball and at SJ10MTM, or send us an email at mtmfootballpod@gmail.com. As ever, we will do our very best to respond to anything sent our way, and now let's kick it off on our first ever bonus episode. What's up, Sam?
Not much, Ryan. Super excited, like you said, the Bundesliga coming back this weekend. It's a super exciting time for football fans now because it's kind of been, up towards 3 months now since we've seen any consistent football. So definitely super excited to see it coming back here. And yeah, just kind of ready to go this weekend. How about you, Ryan? What's going on?
Yeah, I've been really excited. Obviously, Bundesliga's coming back. We've got some really good games this weekend. Schalke Dortmund is going to be a fantastic derby, but I've just been super excited for football so much that I started on a show I've been wanting to watch for a really long time. I started on the documentary Sunderland Till I Die, finished the entire season in less than 24 hours, and it is just an absolutely incredible show for any football supporter out there. The love they have for their team, just the city feeds off this club, and it's extremely heart-wrenching to see the up and down turmoil that club goes through. It's just, you can't get your hopes up at all because something bad right around the corner is about to happen, but just an incredible watch. There's 2 seasons out, so I would highly, highly recommend seeing what I have to say about it on Twitter and checking it out for yourself. It's an absolutely awesome show. Cannot recommend it more. I think Sam is just starting it, but yeah, if you have the time while you're in quarantine, definitely check it out because it is so much fun to watch.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great perspective into how kind of most football fans feel. It's kind of like we have, a lot of us are fans of these like bigger teams, but for those local clubs, those local fans, a lot of their teams go through this. It's like ups and downs and financial struggles, and kind of, this is especially true in some of those bigger European cities that don't have the biggest clubs. It's kind of like the city is feeding off the energy of the football club, and if things aren't going well, on the field, then it's going to affect kind of the morale of the city too. So it's definitely a great perspective.
Yeah, it made me realize we truly live in a glass bubble as fans of some of the biggest clubs in the world. We complain all the time about things not going our way, but from a fiscal perspective, from a results perspective, we truly don't really understand what it's like to be a supporter of a smaller club. So I think it's just a really good perspective to be able to watch and just see the ups and downs of a club that's a lot more smaller than what we're used to. Well, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Sam. Our episode's going to be a little different since it's a bonus episode. We're going to try and keep it a little shorter, but we are going to do some things the same, some things differently. Later on in the show, we'll be touching on some things to watch for the remainder of the Bundesliga season, but I'm going to kick it over to Sam for his bold prediction.
Yeah, so a lot of what we're doing in this episode is Bundesliga centered, like Ryan said, and I think we both kind of have a bold prediction centered towards that. But mine is something we've talked about a couple of times already in the show. I'm kind of going back on my opinion. I don't think Timo Werner will leave Leipzig this summer, and I'll tell you why. Of course, there's tons of links saying he's going to go to England and play, saying he could go to Bayern Munich and play. But I think the biggest link we've seen with him is to Liverpool. In that, I think we can all agree that kind of makes the most sense with Jurgen Klopp being there, and kind of that style of play I think would suit him really well. But we've seen in the last couple of days, in the last week or so, that kind of Liverpool have come out and said they're not really prepared to pay what Leipzig want from Liverpool because they're not exactly sure if he'll be a starter there or not. And that's what I've been saying all along about this transfer is why would Liverpool dish out that much money for a player that won't be starting on a weekly basis, and why would Timo Werner go there if he's not going to get first team minutes at, of course, Liverpool, a top European team. But I think for Timo Werner to go to Liverpool and get first team minutes and play every game like he should be, one of those front 3 for Liverpool would have to leave. And I think I can't see that happening either. Other than Liverpool, I can't really see anything as of right now, any firm links to anywhere else. So, I don't think he'll leave Leipzig this summer.
Yeah, talking with Sam about this before the show, I almost laughed when he told me this. It's definitely a bold prediction for a reason. I think Timo Werner is definitely gone this summer, whether that be to Liverpool or another English team, but I will basically leave it at that. My bold prediction for this week is basically about the remainder of the Bundesliga season. I believe Dortmund's defense is going to crumble. It's been really flaky all year. We've seen moments where it's been really good. They have some really good talents, but at the same time, their inexperience, their lack of, I don't know, just honestly being able to defend is really questionable at times. So I think their defense is going to crumble, and they will actually finish outside the top two because of this.
No, I could definitely see that happening. I think, something we've seen with Dortmund over the last kind of, 4 or 5 seasons, ever since that incredible, Champions League final team left, kind of like dissipated, we've seen that defensive struggle. But I kind of see where you're coming from here. I think that they're definitely prone to those like defensive errors. And Roman Burki, we've seen, some inconsistency from him in goal, but I can't see them not finishing second place. As much as I love Leipzig, as much as I love Mönchengladbach, I don't think that Dortmund will struggle enough to fall to that top two. I think Erling Haaland is just going to continue to show us what a star he is, and we'll talk about more about him and some other young stars later in the show. But Dortmund's attacking ability, that's what they've always lived on, and I think that's why it's a bold prediction from you as well. It's like, I think a lot of people will agree with me in this, is their attacking ability just outweighs all of their defensive struggles, and that's what we've seen the last couple of years. But we have no idea what will happen when we come back, so it'll be really, really great to watch for sure.
Well, next up on the show, we are going to do a brief transfer rumor segment. We've got a couple we're going to touch on, and then we're going to follow that up with This Day in History. We're going to touch on some things we want to see in the Bundesliga, and then we will head into a special interview from one of Sam's good friends. So let's go ahead and get into transfer rumors. First up, we're going to touch on James Rodriguez. Recently, well, honestly, over the past year and a half, he's been linked with Atleti. It seems like he's very settled in Madrid and doesn't really want to leave the area, especially with his family living there. He's looking for a transfer that's very local to him, and it might seem weird, but Madrid have done the same with Marcos Llorente. He wanted to stay in Madrid. All of his family is there. We ended up selling him to Atleti, and I think the exact same thing could happen with James. We're looking at a fee anywhere from 20 to 40 million. No one really knows exactly what it's going to be yet, but it seems really likely. I think Madrid are fairly classy when it comes to letting most of their players go when they want to move on. It doesn't seem like James has a future at Real, especially under Zidane, so I could definitely see them moving on to other things, and I just don't think James is going to be around much longer. So I'm going to probably give this transfer a 7 or an 8. I definitely think James will leave this summer, but there's a very good chance it could be to Atletico Madrid.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you in the fact that he'll leave this summer. I think no one's going to deny that he really doesn't have a place in Real's team. My question here is Atletico the right place for him to play? We all know how Simeone plays. We all know how much work he expects from every single player, and I just don't see that work ethic out of James Rodriguez. Now, whether he could be molded to play a certain position in Atleti's team for Simeone or not, but also João Felix plays for Atletico Madrid, and do they not play very, very similar positions on the field? We've seen kind of João Felix kind of struggle for Atleti this year so far. I think he was really coming into his own towards the end of the season, but I feel like we could see James have a very similar type of struggle if he were to move to Atletico Madrid this summer. So for my rating, I'll give this a 6 or a 7 here. I'm almost certain that he'll leave Madrid, but I'm not sure if Atleti's the place he'll go.
Yeah, Diego Simeone seems to completely ruin any sort of creativity or ability to have any sort of fun on the pitch. He's very much discipline, structure, hard work, and honestly, I'm not too worried about James Rodriguez's work ethic. I think he works harder than a lot of players on our team. Specifically, when he comes on the field, he works harder than Isco most of the time. He works harder than Gareth Bale for sure. So I think the work ethic isn't an issue, but I agree with Sam. There is a question regarding his creativity and where he would fit on the field. Next up, we're going to move on to Kingsley Coman. This transfer is honestly a little bit laughable, or at least this rumor, I should say. This past week, he was linked to a multitude of European clubs: Manchester City, Barcelona, Real Madrid. I honestly have no idea where this rumor came from. It seems like whatever journalist came up with this just had nothing else going for him that day. He couldn't find any leaks or rumors of any other kind, so he just published this. I'll go ahead and say this is a 0, 1 at the highest. I don't see Coman going to any big clubs. He's talented, but he's not that talented. He also has a host of injuries, and all those clubs he's linked with also have to deal with their own players' injuries, and this just makes no sense at all.
Yeah, I agree with that 100% here. I think, Ryan and I talk about this sometimes. I don't think Kingsley Coman's, that great of a player. I think he can do a job for sure, and he's a very talented player. But whenever Leroy Sané comes into Bayern, whenever that is, it's going to happen eventually. We just don't know when, but it's going to happen. Kingsley Coman's out, whether that be to a spot on the bench or to another European club. But I definitely could not see him going to the multitude or the high standing of the clubs you just mentioned. Yeah, I give it a 0 as well.
Next up, we have Miralem Pjanic, and this is a very interesting one. Once again, we've seen Barcelona be just extremely weird with their so-called transfer strategy. I don't even know if we can really call it a strategy. They seem to just find these random players, get convinced that they're going to be the future of this Barcelona team, and they just go after them. We've seen countless weird transfers. Arturo Vidal is one of them for sure. Malcolm was another very weird one, and this seems to be like another one. And Barcelona really are struggling financially, so it looks like it's going to be some sort of swap deal with Juventus, but this one has gathered a lot of steam, and although this is a pretty wild sort of fit, I don't know how Pjanic is really going to be at Barca. This transfer is definitely heated up. I think it is going to happen in some sort of swap deal. Juve have always been down for a swap deal of sorts, so we could see maybe Semedo. Arthur's been mentioned as well. Looks like something is going to be worked out between the clubs, so I'm going to give this one probably a 6. I think it's likely, it's not certain, but we'll see what happens with Miralem Pjanic in the near future.
Yeah, I think it's a super strange one here because we'll do our best as we continue here to not make it seem like we have an anti-Barcelona agenda, because I don't think either of us do. Of course, Ryan, being a Real Madrid fan, might.
I hate them.
Right, you do, but you're smart and you use your common sense here. But Barcelona are struggling. No one really knows what they're doing in the transfer market. In the last 2 summers, they've signed Paulinho, Kevin Prince Boateng, and then Frankie de Jong. Like, what direction are they trying to go here? And Miralem Pjanic is a great player, right? A fantastic, midfielder, can spray the ball all over the place, works hard on the field. But for the price that he would cost from Juventus and the players they would have to give up, I don't see why they would want to, Barcelona would want to do that, because Pjanic is, I'm not sure his exact age, but he's definitely getting up there, high 20s now. 3-4 years max left of that great midfielder. And you're going to give up Artur or Semedo, who could be in your team for the next 10, 15 years. I don't get it at all. But that's what makes me think this is possible, is because Barcelona have no idea what's going on. They have no plan for a post-Messi future, and so that's why I'm going to give this a 5 or a 6 out of 10, because I think it's definitely possible to happen.
Yeah, it's so weird. It makes so little sense that it makes so much sense. Barca just pull out the weirdest transfers, like just out of nowhere. They sign the weirdest players. They don't ever go into windows, it feels like, with a set list of names, anything like that. They just randomly sign players. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, and we'll see what happens. Pjanic is obviously a really good player, but like Sam said, Artur has such a bright future. He's a really, really good midfielder. So it makes absolutely no sense to me why they would give up someone like him or even some of their other younger players to get a very undynamic, unversatile, static midfielder that doesn't really add much to their team.
Yeah, so to jump into our last transfer of the episode here today, we're going to go for one of the most promising young midfielders in England and certainly, the world at this point. It's going to be Jude Bellingham. Very, very heavy links to United, very heavy links to Borussia Dortmund as well. Dortmund just have a sense of great young players in England. We've seen it with Sancho, and we've seen it with a couple of others as well. But I think United will be in the front seat of the race here. I think a figure of around £50 million has been talked about. That is a heavy, heavy figure for a 16-year-old. But playing in the championship at the level he's playing in the championship right now is, I think, very, very reasonable. That price being very reasonable for his ability and the ceiling that he has. It'll be super interesting to see, if United do buy him, what kind of role he'll play in the team, whether we'll loan him back out. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has come out in an interview very recently and was asked about Jude Bellingham and said that, he could see him challenging in the first team. He could see if we were to get him, we could see him challenging in the first team. And that's, I think that speaks to the potential he has and the player he is. Very, very dynamic. He's already a very big kid at his age, 16 years old, but he has a commanding physical presence, a very tactical mind. So I think, like I said, 50 mil, I think, the likelihood of this transfer is very high. Whether he goes to United or Dortmund or whoever, I think that it's almost an 8 or 9 kind of chance out of 10 that he leaves Birmingham City this summer. And whether, like I said, whether he gets loaned back out to Birmingham or he stays at the club and completes their first team football, I'll have to wait and see.
Well, next up, we're going to jump into this day in history, and this one is almost out of pure spite against Sam. 8 years ago today, one of the greatest goals in EPL history. Manchester City are in a really tough battle with a QPR team. Manchester United's game ends a little earlier. They have won, as it stands, they have won the league. City are down by a goal, and they score 2 goals in stoppage time, and we get that super famous Aguero goal that just really shakes Europe. That commentary, it's just loved by so many. Even if you're not a City fan, you have to respect it. It's just such a fun moment. It's one of those chills moments in European soccer where you're just like, wow, that was incredible. We will never see that ever again.
I'm sitting here rubbing my eyes right now. It definitely was a sore point in the history of the Premier League for United fans. I think I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly what I was doing while I was watching it. And as United fans, I think we saw it coming at the time. QPR had conceded a goal, 2 or 3 minutes earlier, and we just saw it coming. City were pouring numbers forward. They knew what the result of our game was. They knew they had to get that goal, and I think the whole world just kind of exploded when he scored that goal. Martin Tyler just lost his mind as he always does. But that goal will definitely go down as one of the best Premier League goals in terms of significance, of all time. And I think that we'll continue to see that goal played over and over again over history. As much as it pains me, I can't argue that that team was great. And Manchester United, we finished behind them on goal difference on 89 points that year. That is incredible. That is an incredible amount of points. We had an incredible team. We still had that kind of the leftovers of the 2007 through 2011 incredible team that we had. And and that was heartbreaking. But there's no arguing that goal is going to go down in history as one of the most significant ever, for sure.
Yeah, as Martin Tyler said, drink it in because we will never see anything like that ever again. Absolutely incredible and awesome moment in Premier League history. Next up, I'm going to hand it over to Sam. Sam is a really big Bundesliga fan. He's been watching for a lot longer than I have. I'm going to let him kind of lead this segment for sure. He's going to touch on 3 things to watch the rest of the season in the Bundesliga.
Yeah, so to kind of jump off on the 3 things that I want you guys to really watch the rest of the season and things that I'll be watching very, very closely. Number 1, I think a lot of us kind of know about at this point, it's the young stars in the Bundesliga. There are so many players in the Bundesliga right now that we could see playing at the top level of European football for a long, long time. The list starts with Jadon Sancho, Erling Haaland, Alphonso Davies, all of, the youngsters at Bayern, Mönchengladbach. They have some great youngsters as well. RB Leipzig, Timo Werner, Dayot Upamecano, Konate, and then, going as far down as even Leverkusen at this point, Kai Havertz, Moussa Diaby. There are so many young players in and around the Bundesliga right now that have incredible futures and that we are looking forward to watching. And it'll be really interesting to see, can the young groups of Dortmund and Leipzig kind of take over the Bundesliga from Bayern, who has kind of that more veteran team with Lewandowski, Muller, Manuel Neuer, and a great midfield there. But it'll be definitely interesting to see if those bright sparks of youngsters can go and take the throne away from Bayern. That kind of leads me right into the next point here. The Champions League and Europa League races this year in the Bundesliga are incredibly tight, and that's kind of why we're so excited that the Bundesliga could come back this year, is you wouldn't want to see it end the way it is now. in terms of the Champions League race, there's 4 points in between Dortmund in second and Leverkusen in fifth. So there's 3 spots for 4 teams, 4 incredibly competitive teams that are not only fighting for the Champions League spots, but fighting for the title as well. So very, very interesting to see there. It might come down to who gets off to the best start here, who can win their first couple of games after the break here. We could see, go on to definitely grab second place, third place, or maybe even challenge Bayern. We'll see. And also the Europa League race as well. We see Schalke kind of, in sixth place, kind of spearheading that Europa League race, along with, whoever finishes fifth. But Schalke is 10 points back of Leverkusen right now. So kind of, like I said, spearheading that Europa League race. But in between Schalke in sixth and Hoffenheim in ninth, there's 2 points. 4 very good teams, Freiburg, Wolfsburg, Hoffenheim, right behind Schalke, that, we've seen some great football from this season. We've seen I think a lot of people are surprised that Frankfurt aren't in that list, but Frankfurt, as we know, very talented team, well coached, could definitely, kind of jump up there as well. So it'd be super interesting to see, who gets off to the best start and who kind of, grabs that Europa League qualification by the scruff of the neck.
Yeah, Sam said all form is completely out the door at this point. It all comes down to how you start these last 9 games, I do believe, that the Bundesliga has left. There's been no play in a couple months. Everyone's just recently been getting back to training. Players are trying to regain match fitness, things of that nature. Coaches kind of have to reinstill those strategic ideas that they had for so long during the rest of the season. And obviously these guys are all professionals and they'll pick it up quickly, but it's all about those first few games. If a team like Leverkusen, Gladbach, Leipzig, any of those teams Sam mentioned in 6th through 9th can pick it up right at the start, pick up 2 or 3 wins right off the bat, they could definitely excel in the table rapidly and finish a lot higher than where they are at the moment.
And kind of jumping into my last thing to watch for the Bundesliga, it's not direct to the Bundesliga, but is the German Cup, the DFB Pokal for this year. It is coming back, and it is at the semifinal stage right now. And I think a lot of people are unaware of one of the teams in that semifinal. It is 4th Division FC Saarbrücken. So, and that's, we all know how hard it is for these lower division teams to get so deep in these competitions, but they are in the Final Four. They're playing against Leverkusen on one side of the Final Four, and on the other side is Bayern Munich and Frankfurt as well. So definitely the underdog in whatever matchup they get, even if they do win. But we'll have to watch and see there. But what makes this so interesting to me is they haven't played any football, right? The German Federation have said 3rd division and lower seasons are canceled. We're not playing any more football. We're done where we are now. And so this will be their only game. Their only game of the rest of their season will be against Leverkusen, and if they win, then of course they play again. But so it'll be super interesting to see how they face up against a Leverkusen team who's been training, who will have played their first game already. So yeah, that'll be definitely interesting to wait and see kind of what happens there, and whether we see a Leverkusen team that it could go 2 ways. They could be super ready to play that game. Their players could be really fit by then. Or we could see the fixture congestion list really hurt Bayer Leverkusen, and we'll see if, maybe we can see an upset there for Saarbrücken as well.
Yeah, Saarbrücken is a really, really crazy story. Everyone loves the Cinderella story, and they are definitely one of those teams. It could really be a blessing and a curse sort of scenario with Saarbrücken. Like Sam said, they could pour everything into this one game. Maybe if they win, they even have a final. But they can focus all their efforts on this one game upcoming with Leverkusen. And if they win, crazy. If not, oh well, it's the end of the year. But at the same time, they could not have fitness. They could just not be focused. And Leverkusen's talent just could prevail. Obviously, Leverkusen have a much better squad. They've got some incredible players. So Leverkusen will be the strong favorites. But it'll be interesting to see, like Sam said, if the fixture congestion and things of that nature, players trying to regain fitness and everything really plays a role in this tie.
Yeah, so with that being said, all this Bundesliga talk, we're going to go into a special interview with one of my really good friends that I've been going to school with the last couple of years. His name's Chris Adrian. He's here from Germany, studying at the University of South Carolina, and it's really interesting to hear his perspective. This will be really cool for you guys to hear kind of some of the cultural differences of here in Germany, some of the kind of how we view our sports here and there, and also how they view some of the American sports as well. So we'll take it over that interview, and we hope you guys will enjoy that. So, guys, I am here today with a great friend of mine, Chris Adrian. Chris is from Germany, but is here studying in the U.S., so he can kind of give us a great perspective into German soccer and just German culture altogether. Chris is a Bayern Munich fan, so we will dive into that and also what makes fandom different in Europe than it is here in the United States for our American sports. So, how are you today, Chris?
Pretty good. How are you, Sam?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. I'm glad to have you here. Obviously, with the circumstances we have, we're kind of looking for some content, but Chris is going to be a great interview for you guys to hear. And so Chris, tell me a little bit about just general cultural difference between the U.S. and Germany.
Yeah, I mean, the cultural difference is obviously like very, very big. European culture and American culture is like very, very different. The main part, and since like we're mostly talking about sports and soccer here, so if it's cool, I'm going to dive right into like more of the cultural difference in sports. So as you probably, or as some people know, Europe is mainly about soccer. So for example, that's something I always enjoyed here in the U.S. That in the U.S. you still have football, basketball, baseball, ice hockey, soccer. Like it's a very, very diverse sports culture you have here, and I personally am a big fan of that because in Germany, like when you grow up, it's basically just soccer everywhere.
Yeah.
Sure, people do stuff like tennis. In Germany, actually, handball is big, very big, actually.
Right.
Basketball is coming a little bit, but overall, there's just soccer. That's the only thing basically that matters sports-wise, which is for me a little sad, but understandable. And I grew up on it my entire life, so yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'll add on to that. How easy is it for like you to view American sports in Germany? Like, do they have it on the TVs there, like the NBA and stuff, and like the NFL?
Actually, no, not at all.
Okay.
Like you would have to like pay like a certain like Sky, for example,
Yeah.
to like be able to watch American sports. The only thing that we really get in Germany is the Super Bowl. That's
Okay.
usually that's usually free to watch. But like since we're like 6-7 hours ahead, like our Super Bowl when we watch it is at like 3 a.m. That's when it starts, so we have
Right.
to go like through the whole night. So that's always a little interesting. But like you would be surprised how many people do that in Germany.
What do you think is the most popular American sport? Is it like the NBA or the NFL or?
I would argue it's football.
Okay.
Especially since the Super Bowl is the biggest thing that basically exists in sports.
Sure. Yeah.
And again, it's like you in Germany, yeah, like there's a lot of awareness because of the Super Bowl for football in general, and like basketball is also very, very big. So the NBA is pretty big, but again, since it's extremely difficult to watch it from Germany, I would argue like football is a little higher on the awareness scale than basketball.
Okay. Yeah. Great. That's a good perspective. So, kind of talking a little bit more about you personally. When did you start watching soccer? Was it like right from day one, or was it like kind of you started playing first and then you started watching? How did that go?
Yeah, no, my dad put me into soccer when I turned 3. Officially started playing soccer right when I turned 4. And yeah, basically, when I started, I was 4 years old. I'm about to be 24, so I'm hitting my 2 decades of soccer very soon, actually. Which is great, love it. But I just got into it very, very early because my dad played his entire life. His dad played his entire life. My great-grandfather, so also from my dad's side, he actually is the founder of the soccer club in my town. So he's actually
Wow.
responsible for the one who founded it. It was like 100 years ago, so it's a long, long time ago.
That's awesome.
But yeah, especially on my dad's side, every man played soccer basically their entire life. So I'm like the 4th generation basically of it, and I'm pretty sure that's kind of like the reason why my dad got me into it, because it's just runs in the family, man. So.
Absolutely, love to hear that. So how did you become a Bayern fan? Was it your dad, or was it how does that work?
Okay, here's the funny story about this. Believe it or not, so my dad is a Schalke fan, first of all, and there is a picture of me that exists when I was about 1 year old. And he mocks me with it all the time, even to this day, where when I turned 1, he made me a premium Schalke member back in the day. And like he has that picture of me in like a Schalke jersey, hat, and even cleats. I have no idea how he found those, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, there's like that picture that exists of me, and he always mocks me with it. And eventually, I feel like, I don't know, I was like got a little mad about that and turned into like the biggest rivals of Schalke,
Wow,
which is Munich.
okay.
So
Wow, okay.
I feel like it was like a little bit of a your parents tell you something to do all the time, and that's exactly what you do, the exact opposite of it. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a great story. I love that. Okay, so kind of to build on that, kind of tell me your favorite moments of being a Bayern fan. Like, what are your like, if you think about kind of the happiest moments you've had being a fan, what do those include?
I mean, my favorite moments are obviously always when Munich plays against insanely good teams in the Champions League. I always enjoyed the matchups against Barcelona or Madrid, usually in the Champions League semifinals. And while Munich's results against these teams is usually unfortunately not that good, it's still just awesome to watch in general, and I really enjoy it. So, for example, when we won against Barcelona in the semifinal, like 4-0 at home, and then beat them 3-0 at the Camp Nou. That was awesome. That was great. And of course, the Champions League final when we won against Dortmund.
Absolutely.
The one against Inter and Chelsea, I'm not counting those, so I can't remember those, unfortunately.
Yeah, so you and I, we've spoke sometimes about kind of like the sense of pride you have in other German teams as well. So like in the Champions League, for example, if Dortmund were in the semifinals, you're gonna pull for Dortmund, right? That's how you think. So I think a lot of American fans, and I think maybe some like English fans as well, if there's that other team from their country of their favorite team, they're not gonna pull for their favorite team. So I think that's a good perspective you have. What do you think about that?
No, I heard about that, yeah. No, my dad made sure from a very early age that it's like, you have a German team in an international competition, you root for those. For example, when Frankfurt was in the semifinal in the UEFA Cup a year or two ago, I forgot now. But we were all, like, nobody of my friends and me included, we are not Frankfurt fans at all. But, like, we were watching those games and we were hyped all the time.
That's such a different perspective from what we're used to as American fans. So, like, obviously that means, like, you're really into the national team, too. You, like, follow the national team pretty closely?
Absolutely, yeah. Last couple of years were a little rough, but overall, I'm pretty happy with what's happening right now.
Yeah, no, the foundation for the German national team is incredible, and a great coach still. Jurgen Löw may have fell off a little bit, but I'm sure he's still viewed as a great coach.
Yeah, I know. Like, his reputation took a huge hit after the World Cup. I mean, probably not a big surprise to anyone, but the good thing is he's starting to understand the whole concept of, for example, what the Netherlands did last couple of years to build their national team on a very young core overall, and I think he started understanding that in the last couple of years. When you look at Serge Gnabry, Leroy Sané, Timo Werner up front, instead of like Klose, for example, or Müller.
Right.
Still great players, but they're all over like 30, so it's kind of hard with that. And I know he also did like all our defense new with like younger players, which is a good thing, because if you don't give younger people a chance to get like international experience, then they're never going to be that good, okay? And it's not their fault, in my opinion. So
yeah, absolutely. That's a great way to think about it. And obviously, I think the new era of German football with a lot of the younger prospects coming through, Timo Werner, Leroy Sané, Kai Havertz, things are looking positive.
True. No, I agree. So I hope in the next like 3 to 4 years we will see success and results. Hopefully, yeah.
Absolutely. I guess we'll jump straight off the deep end here. Give me your 3 favorite players of all time.
Of all time?
They don't have to play for Bayern, just of all time.
Oh, no, I actually don't have a favorite player from Bayern when it comes to all time.
Okay, all right. So tell me about that.
I don't know if it sounds weird, but like most of these players come from the AC Milan team, like 2005, like
right.
At that time. So
really fun team to watch.
Exactly. So my favorite striker of all time, and you can hate me for that or not, up to you, but is actually Andrei Shevchenko.
Okay.
Big fan of his.
Fantastic.
Defense wise, it just has to be Maldini.
Yeah.
Maldini is just, in my opinion, the best center back in the history of soccer.
I don't think a lot of people will argue with you there.
Yeah. And third one, hard to say. I mean, I could start.
So maybe, go for like a midfielder. Maybe like your favorite midfielder of all time.
A midfielder?
Since you've gone for the striker and the center back.
That's a good one. Very good question. Couldn't really argue right now. Not sure. I would honestly go for either Gerrard or Lampard.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would more go for Gerrard because I just like this way of playing a little more, his style.
Yeah.
But I would definitely, I would go for him then here. Yeah.
Okay. So do you have like a big background in watching like English soccer too, English football?
A little bit, yeah. Not that much though, because as a kid, I played myself all the time, and the only soccer I really watched was Bundesliga.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
I knew the other clubs from like FIFA, for example. Like I still have a what was it, FIFA 2005 back on my PlayStation
Absolutely.
2.
Yeah.
That's old school stuff. But that's how I basically got to know teams from other countries. But no, I didn't watch it that much. But like since you get older, you watch highlights, and I always again liked watching Shevchenko, Lemp, Gerrard, and Maldini. So yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. That's a great perspective. So kind of like the last thing I want to touch on with you. A lot of the American fans as of lately have been like very critical of the United States development programs and the way we kind of like breed our players, and maybe the college system that we have, the MLS system that we have is definitely not like what you have in Europe. So explain to me like the development systems in Germany from kind of like day one, like age of like 4 or 5, like all the way through, being called up for our first team, for like a Bundesliga team.
So the major difference in the two systems is that we don't play for our schools. Our schools have absolutely nothing to do with sports at all. If you play, it doesn't even need to be soccer. Any sport in general, you always play for the village, the town, the city you live in, and you just like play youth soccer from like age 4 to 17, 18, around that, I would say. And when you're 18, you switch to men's soccer, and you're playing with people who are like 30 something, 20 something,
And that's for your town though, right? Still at that age, you're playing for like your people.
Basically, yeah, but you have the choice to go wherever you want, whenever.
Awesome.
And so, for example, when I switched to men's soccer, I just turned 18 at that time, and suddenly I was instead of being like center back normally, I was suddenly a right back playing with a dude who was center back was 34. So
wow. Okay.
that was an interesting switch because I only had that summer between that. So which was still very nice because you learned a lot from these older players. But that's definitely the main difference, that you play for your town, not your school.
Yeah, that's a great point of view. I think that the U.S. gets a lot of criticism because our players, our players in MLS that are homegrown, they kind of don't start playing in the league until they're like 22. They've graduated from college and everything, and I think that kind of puts a lot of halt on their development. If they're not playing at the college, the top level, they're not going to really experience that, that competitiveness that I think you get in like the younger levels of European soccer.
Yeah, the thing is, never forget that like a sports career is usually like, let's go for like about 15 years from when you're 20 to 35.
Mm-hmm.
And losing 4 years of 15 years, that's a lot.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of time you lose. And especially when you're younger, like 18 to 22, like what you just mentioned with college, that's still a time where you learn a ton. And at a certain age, I feel like you don't learn anything anymore in soccer. Like I'm about to turn 24. Honestly, I don't think there's much people could teach me anymore in soccer, because like after all that time, I'm probably too stubborn anyway to learn. So yeah, I feel like it's just like these 4 years, you just lose them, and that young age, it's just not good in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a great point. So I want to get into talking a little bit about the Bundesliga now, and Bayern Munich now. So how do you think, I guess, the German people feel about the Bundesliga restarting now? Are they optimistic that the season will finish out, or is it kind of like, more of a cautiousness towards the coronavirus? How do you think that is right now?
I'm not sure. I feel like they're just trying to like get some sense of normality in like people's life in general, especially like people who are working in the Bundesliga area. I don't know. Like personally, I'm not the biggest fan of them like restarting the whole season, especially since in every other European major league they're either canceled or it's over, or they're just not playing simply. So I'm not sure if that's the best idea what they're doing. Obviously we will see. Since they're starting it again, they probably will finish the season. I think we have like 11 games left technically, so we will see if they do that. But yeah, if it's a good idea or not is up to everyone else. I personally am not the biggest fan, since again it's canceled everywhere in Europe. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I guess kind of building on that, if they do finish out the season, is Bayern going to win the league?
Yeah.
No question, no worries.
No. We got Lewandowski. We're good.
I know. We've talked about it in our previous podcast episodes a lot. Bayern are playing really well right now. The form is very good. So you're not worried about Dortmund or Leipzig coming behind you and jumping, or?
Not really. No. We got Lewandowski. We got Davis. So we're all said and done. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for talking to me today. I want to thank you for coming on here and giving our listeners your point of view in terms of the Bundesliga and Bayern Munich. And yeah, I hope you stay well.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you so much. Stay safe, man.
Great job on the interview, Sam. I thought that was really fun. I wasn't expecting that to be as interesting as it is. Chris, I've been able to meet him a couple times. He's a really cool guy, really fun to hang out with. He's super knowledgeable in the Bundesliga, German soccer, playing the game as well. He's a really good player. So that was just a really fun interview. I loved how he talked about the development of U.S. players and how it's so much different than in Germany. He touched on how in the U.S., those college years, you lose a lot of those really important times of development. That's kind of when you're more physically fit than ever. You've kind of grown into your body, and mentally you're capable of kind of soaking in anything that coaches have to offer. And the U.S., you really lose that. In college, it definitely seems like it's some sort of slow growth. And when you're out of college, you're 22 now, you might head into the MLS draft if you're really good or pursue another career. Meanwhile, in Germany, from 16, 17, 18, and so on, those are your key development years, and you're learning from professional players. Now, granted, they might be not the biggest talents in the world, but they're still professional, really good players. So I just thought that was really interesting how in the U.S. he sees it as us losing really key years of development during that stage in our lives.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of, related to that, he mentioned that a lot of these players, they're playing for their hometown, right? And the difference we see with us here in the U.S. is we're playing for like a club team and like kind of a mixture of players from all over. And I think that kind of harms us as well because we're not playing with that team environment, that, feeling of like playing for our town. I think that is so much different than what we see here. And what you said about the college years and the development years, that 18 to 22, we haven't seen really any U.S., big United States national team players come through the college system that have started, from where that was. They moved to either Germany or England or wherever at a very young age, 16, 17, 18, and that's where we've seen them get the biggest development. So I think it's exactly what you said. I think that's the biggest reason why we see such a difference. And maybe until we see the U.S. kind of change that, until we see more of an emphasis on, pro youth teams and stuff like that, we might not really see a huge difference. And we might see that gap between the United States and these other nations around us continue to grow.
Yeah, we never see any big players from the U.S. come out of college and all of a sudden, boom, they're the saviors of the national team. It's always those players that, like Sam said, moved to Germany or another country from a young age. We look at Gio Reyna, Christian Pulisic, players like that nature. Those are the key talents. Those are the ones that truly have the quality to bring the U.S. back to having a really good soccer federation. And it's just not going to happen using college players. They just don't produce the talent the national team needs.
So yeah, guys, that's going to wrap everything up for this week on the Manchester to Madrid podcast. If you guys have any questions, want to get in touch with Chris, or however it may be, have any comments to make about the interview, let us know. Reach out to us on Twitter, email us, do whatever. Get involved with us, and maybe we'll kind of answer your questions on the podcast as well. Tune in with us again on Monday, as we'll be kind of summarizing all of the games in the Bundesliga from this weekend, and kind of going to our regularly scheduled show. I'm talking about more transfer rumors, talking about this day in history, and maybe some highs and lows of the weekend as well. If you guys like what you heard today, share us with your friends. Subscribe to us on Podbean. Listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to us on there as well, and share us with your football-loving friends as well. Thank you guys so much for the support, and we will talk to you on Monday.